Now, one of the things that TikTok and YouTube Shorts has done is it has given large voices to people who don't have much to say and maybe haven't thought out their arguments, but it doesn't matter because in 60 seconds, they can convince people. So all the videos we are about to look at now have racked up 6-digit, sometimes 7-digit numbers of views just in the last month, all professing that they have proof of God. So let's take a look. I believe there's 6 of them. We're going to rapid fire through them. Here we go, guys. 6 proofs, YouTube Shorts, God is real. Let's go.
Do you know that scientists have actually found proof of God and the crucifixion of Jesus Christ in human blood?
I did not. Well, I actually kind of did. I immediately predicted where this was going because, oh my goodness.
Whilst doing research, they found the most remarkable substance. It's called laminin, and it's the protein network foundation for most cells and organs in the human body. This is it under a microscope, and this is the molecular structure.
Look at that. Jesus. It's the cross of Jesus in molecular form.
Just like the cross of Jesus Christ. And the
All right, let's take a look at laminin, evidence of divine creation. Maybe before you make your short, you could go to Snopes. You could go to any number of websites and find out, hey, is this actually evidence of divine creation? Now, if you're a Christian, you're probably not going to agree with Snopes if they say, hey, this isn't. But you could at least take a look and see what the counter arguments are. So we're presenting all this, and here's the exact same diagram that he had up. Turns out that this, if you can see it in the chat there, it's actually sideways. So, of course, this came from a textbook where they're outlining the structure of laminin. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm ill-prepared. Laminin. And they make a good point. Laminin actually also looks like lots of things. If you look at this straight up this diagram, it looks like a caduceus. It also looks like a sword. And generally, it looks just like any kind of X structure. If you were to throw a whole bunch of popsicle sticks in the air, let them land, I guarantee you're going to have some of them creating what's vaguely a cross shape. Can we just infer that any chemical structure that we see that looks like something that might be associated with something divine or something associated with something else, should we agree that the god of war is real? Because, boy, it sure looks like part of the proteins in our body looks like a sword. I mean, it's the same argument, right? Anyway, but even worse, it never looks like this on our microscope. This is what a human diagrammed it as, so that in a textbook, people could take a look at what's going on. Under a microscope, it looks more like these. It's always flopping around like this. They're much more like those used car guys that flap around. That's what they look like. They don't stay rigidly structured in a cross shape. So, no, my friend, this doesn't seem like it's a good point.
I believe in proves it. If you believe Jesus is the Son of God, then like and subscribe and watch the video I pinned.
So I think we can all connect the dots. This was proof. He called it a proof of God. So some of the protein in our body looks vaguely like the instrument of the story of Jesus's death. I don't get how it's therefore God, even if God exists. There's a million other explanations for this. It's not a proof. In fact, it's not even evidence. Like sometimes when you say evidence is something that makes one conclusion more likely over another conclusion. A universe where God exists, are you suggesting that there would be no proteins that had a general X shape? There'd be no natural structures that have an X shape? Something similar happened after 9/11. A couple of the beams fell and landed in roughly an X shape to make people thought it looked like a cross. It's one of the most basic, simple shapes there is. It's like Jesus's worst day. Like that's what we're celebrating. Yeah, no. But I don't think that was a proof. Let's see what the proof number 2.
Proof that God exists, part 4. Here in the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verse 15, God gives Noah the measurements of how to build the ark. When the researchers and the scientists found this out a couple of years ago, it was the exact same measurement as stated in the Bible by God.
Wait, what? Researchers only discovered a couple of years ago that the book of Exodus had dimensions for the ark. I understand this is a short format, but you need to put like subjects in your sentences because you just said when scientists found this out, they discovered it was exactly what's in the Bible. Do you mean what is this that matches the measurements? There's lots of things that are roughly the same size as the biblical ark. He will never address this. So we're left wondering what it is that the scientists saw or found.
But wait, there's war. Later on in Genesis chapter 8, verse 4, in the Bible, it shows the location of where the ark rested. I had to Google the location of where Mount Ararat is located. And Mount Ararat is located and identified as mountains in Turkey right here.
Well, this is true. There is a mountain range named Ararat in Turkey right now. I think you can probably guess in the chat where this is going. I see a Ron. I see Ron Wyatt is in the chat. Absolutely.
With the advanced 3D scans of the area, they were able to find the ark exactly where it said the ark rested on in the Bible.
Archaeologists claim to have found the true location of Noah's Ark. So, I mean, one of the problems, of course, is that the modern mountain range that's named Ararat is not necessarily in any way what I guess, according to biblical timelines, like 6,000 years ago would have been, or maybe the flood was 5,000 years ago. That they all called Ararat. That's fine. No problem. You can say, hey, it's Turkey. It's all from a historical place. You'll notice this is the exact picture that our TikTok gentleman here had up on his screen. Now, what you'll notice when you can see it large in the middle frame, the first one is from a satellite overhead view. And you can see from that, of course, it looks a little bit like, oh, maybe that's a boat shape type thing. The middle frame, you can see what the structure actually looks like in 3D form. And on the other side, they did some seismic scanning of under the area. And there's a couple of people who are convinced that if you scan underneath there, that what you're getting in those black areas are some chambers. And what they're saying is, well, this is obviously a boat, because you scan under there and there's some hollow points. Even though it's collapsed, there's some open structures. It was obviously a boat. So perhaps you can read what this last sentence says. Still, geologists say that the formation, first unearthed around 50 years ago, is a simple rock formation. The border around this thing, everything about it, it's made of rocks. It's not petrified wood, it's rocks. To the extent where it's approximately the same size as the ark as well, it's really only the length, as I understand it. It's far wider than what the Bible said, to which they said, well, maybe the pieces fell apart to make it crazy wider. It's not. It doesn't match the width at all. But also, it's based on cubits, right? So you can see here, so your cubit was traditionally from the top of your finger to your elbow. That's a cubit. And of course, everyone has a different length of arm. So what is a cubit exactly? Well, there's a broad range of what is considered a cubit. And it's my understanding that only within the most generous of tiny cubits does this rock formation in any way even match what the biblical thing is for the length. So no, Mr. TikTok friend, they didn't find Noah's Ark. In fact, you can go on Answers in Genesis website where they talk about specifically that this is not a find of Noah's Ark. And if anyone wants Noah's Ark to be real, it's Ken Ham and the people who own the Ark Encounter. Well, maybe they would lose some tourism dollars to the actual site. Who knows? But no. So strike number 2. And frankly, even if Noah's Ark is true, that does not mean that the God of the Bible is true. Like, that's not proof of the God of the Bible. That would be proof of the veracity of that story.
Like it or not, it's the true mind-blowing.
So what he said there was, like it or not, it's the truth. Yeah, doesn't matter. Anyway, we're on number 3, mind-blowing proof of God.
Proof of God, part 6. Share this with a friend because everyone needs to hear it. I have proof. So the first thing I just want
Again, it's always weird to me that you have 60 seconds and you spend 12 of those telling people to basically to like and subscribe. That means you don't got much to say, but that's fine.
to say was we didn't come from a big bang. We were all correct.
We didn't come from a big bang. Again, you've spent another 7 seconds just in a funny voice deciding that the Big Bang isn't correct. It's okay.
Created in the image of God. The proof is within your DNA. There is no one quite like you in the world. You are one of a kind and you are God.
Okay. Proof is in the DNA. You are one of a kind, and he's got up on the verse, Ephesians 2:10. You are God's masterpiece. So Ephesians 2:10 in the NIV says you are God's handiwork, not your masterpiece. If I'm understanding his argument correctly, he's hinging on the fact that the verse says you are God's masterpiece. And what he said right after that was there's only one of you. Your unique DNA combination only exists once. And because in his mind, masterpiece means once, therefore that verse is correct. And therefore God is real. There are lots of unique things, of course. The Bible doesn't say, hey, every snowflake is a masterpiece. Therefore, that's not a claim that the Bible makes. So I guess that makes sense that we're appealing to made in the image of God, masterpiece. The trouble is, we've got twins. Twins share the DNA. They are identical from that perspective. So the proof can't be in the DNA that every single human is unique because we have identical twins, identical triplets, identical quadruplets, and so forth. So that doesn't quite work. Of course, when the Bible was written, they didn't understand genetics, so that really doesn't matter. But also, does masterpiece imply or infer in any way that anything that's unique genetically is called a masterpiece? Well, no. Even in English, a masterpiece here, a work of outstanding artistry, skill, or workmanship, not one of a kind. We look at the verse he showed. We are God's handiwork in the NIV. Well, handiwork definitely does not infer uniqueness or require uniqueness. You can say that this chair is excellent handiwork, but the person who made it may have made 1,000 of those chairs. It doesn't work with that, but hey, maybe this is NIV is a weird translation. Some people won't like it. Let's take a look at all the translations. Man, I'm seeing workmanship, handiwork. I'm not seeing this masterpiece. Let's take a look. Can we find what translations say masterpiece? Okay, so the ISV says we are God's masterpiece. The New Living Translation, which is I consider to be pretty much garbage when I was a Christian, we are God's masterpiece. I don't know what OJV translation is. So we're back. Of all these translations, 3 of them went with masterpiece for some reason. Masterpiece doesn't mean the same as unique. So you're a little tying together that because a verse says masterpiece and most humans don't share identical DNA, even though some do, you can't go ... therefore God. That's just not a proof of God, everybody.
So if you want real proof that God exists, take a look at yourself.
Wow, that's like, look at the trees, but let's just look at the mirror. And from the mirror, you should be able to somehow notice your own DNA and have remembered a book that you are a masterpiece, therefore God exists. First of all, you'd have to demonstrate that we're a handiwork of any sort as opposed to a natural process. Sure seems like we are just the end result of natural processes, so we can't even go with handiwork, let alone that we're well-made. Human bodies have tons of flaws that, be it from sin or not, if God is trying to mark our current shape as a masterpiece with all these flaws of sin, no, it's, a lot of stuff doesn't work, and it doesn't seem like some of these design flaws are sin-related, per se. Anyway, huge fail across the board on number 3. Oh, we're halfway, guys.
For those of you who are seeking God, who are searching for God, who have
That's
to
like
have,
me.
you have to have some kind of empirical, factual, physical evidence of God, or you're just not going to believe.
And that seems reasonable, right? So we apportion our belief based on the evidence available. In order to convince me that a God would exist, I need just something. I need some kind of evidence for it. So it seems weird that he's like snidely putting people who need evidence in a camp of some kind of people who deserve derision, I guess. But let's see where he's going. You people suck if you need evidence. You're lame. But I think he's going to give it to us. At least this video title said he was.
Here's my suggestion. I have a way to figure it out.
Oh, perfect. Write this
To
down,
figure
everyone.
out if there's an invisible God.
Mm-hmm.
Is he real?
Is he real?
Well, if the Bible is true and he
Okay.
is real,
Mm-hmm.
he's supernatural, which means he can be
Okay.
everywhere in the universe at all times. And he's
That's not what supernatural means. Supernatural means not natural. Certainly, we can all conceive of things that are not natural, that are not omnipresent, as he just described. But okay, well, I mean, let's roll with this. Maybe I'm being too harsh on him. He just means that it's not impossible for something supernatural to be omnipresent, I guess. Let him keep rolling.
a creator. Here's what you're going to do. Matthew 7:7 says, ask and you will receive. So go into your bedroom, shut the door, and say, God, give me a sign that you're real. Show me in my life. Come into my life and show me that you exist.
Okay, so have you thought about asking him? Well, I'm in my studio, but the door is closed. Those of you who were with me for my last stream know that we were all took a second to see what God was going to tell us if we closed our eyes. But let's just ask God. I don't think I need to close my eyes. Maybe the prayer doesn't work if I don't close my eyes. But so God, if you are real, on behalf of all the people in the chat, the 300 and some people who are currently watching live, and all those who will watch in the future, we forgot to ask. I'm sorry. So please, we want to know if you are real. So please show us a sign right here on this live stream so that we can have the evidence we need to be convinced that you are real. I will wait. All right, well, that is too much dead air. We don't want that much dead air on the broadcast. So everyone let me know in the chat if somehow behind me while I keep going on the next video, if God does something to demonstrate that he's real, I mean, we all forgot to ask, right? So the proof is that we asked somehow. All right, let's move on to, I think, number 5. Okay, so far we got a blue sky with clouds and a circle circling this cloud. It's just quiet. Proof God is real, pardon me. And I don't know what that cloud is supposed to be. So I'm going to take a second. I want everyone in the chat now. What is this cloud? Like, is it a baby? Is it a dog? Let me know in the chat what you see when you see a boy. I'm going to put on my new special streaming glasses. We got God's penis. Maybe this is as designed by James. That would be something that looks like a head. I kind of see a chicken to the left, but that's not in the circle. So fetus? Again, I don't get it. I don't see. It's a squiggly cross. Excellent. Squiggly cross like all the human DNA. Maybe, or someone made a good point. Is it the red circle in the sky? Perhaps. Maybe this is real film. Maybe she didn't add that later. Maybe this red circle was circling something in the sky, because that'd be something. I see a Watto penis. I should have expected that to be coming. Snoopy, Casper the Ghost. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know what to say. What do they have to say about proof that God is real? Oh, that was it. I don't know what she said. All right. So maybe that's amazing. So I'm going to play this again. Everyone get your listening caps on. That's not a thing. Hearing aids in. You got earbuds like I got. Earbuds. Let's listen very carefully now. We're going to ignore the cloud. We're going to listen to what she says, and I want you to put that in the chat. What do you think that she said? Was it amazing? Let me know in the chat what you heard, if anything. That's a baby? Maybe. What else did you guys hear? Anything? Okay. But you saw the caption, right? Proof of God. Circle in a cloud. We said something that no one can hear. Maybe that's amazing. Yeah, you guys are all agreeing with me. That's what I heard. That's amazing. So amazing doesn't even mean proof of God, right? Lots of things are amazing that no one's even claiming has anything to do with God. Oh my goodness. I think we're 0 for 5 now, guys. Let's see if the best one is for last.
Scientists have found proof of Noah's flood. Christian or not, watch this video because this
Christian or not, watch this video. So I'm in the target audience.
will absolutely blow your mind. So scientists have confirmed in 5600 BC that the Black Sea had a major surging of water.
So that's actually correct. There's a lot of evidence around the Black Sea that at one point the water level was much higher than it is now. We might be onto something. So far good.
raised it over 100 feet, over 100,000 square miles.
Again, we're going to look at some slides later, but he's not wrong. So it does look like evidence that at some point the Black Sea was 100 feet or 30 meters for the Canadians higher than it was at some point in history. And he's actually correct. This is like 7,000 years ago.
This would have been catastrophic for anyone living in this time. This man.
It would have been. Now, here's what's interesting. You need to line yourself up, my friend, here with your young Earth creation people who think that the Ark was a global thing. 7,000 years ago, according to them, was before everyone existed. So if you're saying that 7,000 years ago there was a flood that would have been devastating to people who existed, you got some work to do. I'm just saying. I think people were around 7,000 years ago. So I'm gonna roll with you. Maybe you're an old Earth creationist. Let's see where you're going.
Robert Baylor, who went down and found the remains of the Titanic, also went down to see if this was actually real.
Okay, so let's take a look. First there at this flood that he's talking about. So not so big flood. So here's a diagram of what scientists can reasonably say. It looks like that there was a flood, and what you're seeing in the dark blue areas is where the current water level is. But at some point around 7,000 years ago, it looks like some event happened. The light blue areas also were filled in with water. The speculation is that at some point it was a storm surge. This is very close to the ocean, and that it looks like there's actually evidence that this was an event where there was salt water mixed with fresh water, and so not unexplainable again, but took up a significant portion of the land, so not trivial. and some of the later finds will make it more interesting, just so you guys can get a perspective. So these underneath here, what we're seeing is some demonstrations of some of the underwater structures that we know are in that body of water. And the top one shows where we are now, and so the tip of this stone is displayed. They're saying 9,000 years ago in this article. It was indeed 100 feet higher, potentially. So confirmation, so far so good. So he wanted to tell me in the video, put on screen, you can't see it right now, that Robert Baylor, and he spelled it Baylor, went and did some digging. Now, I was not able to find Robert Baylor, but I found Robert Ballard, because apparently Christians, when they want to present evidence of God, it's not important to put the actual name of the actual scientists, the actual people who make the discoveries. You just say whatever. If he was just speaking it, that'd be fine, but it was literally on screen. Anyway, so a gentleman named Robert Ballard went and he did an exposition down underneath in the Black Sea. Now, what he found was a shipwreck. He found several well-preserved ships. So if you find a ship underwater, is that evidence of a flood? Just a question. Did anyone in the chat think that a ship underwater is evidence of a flood? No. Ships tend to be in water. Shipwrecks tend to happen in water. That's not evidence that the water rose or went down. So crazily enough, I didn't give up on this. He gave up on this far too quickly. There's actually much better evidence than Robert Baylor's boats, because again, a boat doesn't tell me there was a flood. But instead, actually several years even before Baylor went out there was two guys, William Ryan and Walter Pittman, who went and did some diving in the Black Sea area, and they found actual evidence of a civilization. Well, isn't that much better evidence? And this has since been published. When the water rose, there was actually civilizations, colonies that were living close to the water, as colonies tend to do, and those were wiped out. So good grief, I found better evidence for your flood claim than what's in your video. Now, the problem is the two guys who found this, I would be very suspect. They went on to publish a book, Noah's Flood, The New Scientific Discoveries About the Event That Changed History. Now, I haven't read the book. It was published in 1999. I've not heard of it since. It didn't obviously shake the creationist world. I don't know whether these two men went looking to affirm the flood or whether they became believers in the flood after. I don't know, but it's somewhat suspect. My point is, Christians with your proof of God do a better job than I do in actually making proof. What you just put on your video was that there was a boat. And again, all of these things are like 9,000 to 10,000 years old by all estimates. Anyway, I'm getting frustrated. We'll go back to the video and let him finish out.
And what he found was shocking. He found the remains of human habitation over 7,000 years old.
No, that's a boat. You have a picture of a boat. I mean, a boat is a boat. It signals human habitation, but you had better examples. You could have gone to the other guys.
Nearly 300 feet under the surface of the Red Sea. Scientists even said that this points to a flood the size of biblical proportions.
Okay, did you hear that? The scientists said that this points to a flood the size of biblical proportions. So we brought up that diagram before. So if you are of the kind of Christian who thinks that the flood of Noah was not a global event, that it didn't cover the entire planet, but that it was a regional flood, this would definitely be a regional flood. And there's been hypotheses that this would be a good candidate. It's in the Middle East. This could have been a good candidate for something that inspired the Epic of Gilgamesh and a lot of the other flood legends that came from around the area, because it definitely would have been a significant flood. It could have inspired it, but is it biblical? Did it cover the globe? No. And I actually went looking for where the scientists said, that's a hyperbolic statement, right? You say, oh, this is a biblical proportions. And some people just say that things are biblical proportions when they're clearly not. That's hyperbolic. So here's the quote from this article that I found. The 2009 issue of the Quaternary Science Review suggests that if the flood occurred at all, it was much smaller, hardly of biblical proportions. What scientists said was this flood was hardly of biblical proportions, not that it was of biblical proportions. Wow, I think number 6 might be the worst. I don't know. Which one do you think is worst? Is it the cloud? Was it the guy who just said, have you thought of looking? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. What do you think was, of those 6, which was the most convincing and the least convincing proofs of God? I don't think we got there.
This just proves that the Bible is real. If you aren't an atheist, let me know in the comments.
Wait, the video started with saying, whether you believe in God or not, this video is for you. And then he says, if you are not an atheist, Leave a message in the comments. He wants non-believers to watch, but don't comment. If you think he's full of garbage, keep that to yourself.
Love Jesus. Subscribe now.
If you love Jesus, subscribe now. So he has this whole series, if I'm reading his intro correctly, of proof of God, and who he wants to see these are people who already believe in God. Isn't that neat? My channel, I don't really care how much non-Christians watch. I would love it if more Christians watched. That'd be all the better. If you are a Christian, please subscribe. If you are a Christian, please leave comments, because you are exactly the kind of person who I want to have conversations with and talk more about and present things.